For those nearing death's door, there often comes a period of self-reflection. Some may come to terms with mistakes they made in past relationships. Others may grieve for the things they didn't say out loud to family members or friends. Others, however, will struggle with much heavier regrets, torn by a split-second decision they made that changed the lives of not just them, but many others, haunted by a crime they can't undo. In today's episode, we'll be examining a few of such cases, as we explore 3 haunting deathbed confessions linked to missing person cases. Diane and Mark Yoli. 7-year-old Diane Moon Yoli and her half-brother, 2-year-old Mark Eugene Yoli, were last seen at around 3:15 on the afternoon of September 13th, 1962. The 2 children were on their way to the playground at Camp Lejeune, a military base in North Carolina where their father was stationed. Given that this occurred in the early 1960s, the parents of Mark and Diane were not immediately alarmed when they didn't come home. They were known to be adventurous children who often wandered off. One time they were even found sleeping beneath a tree, but as the day turned into night and the sky grew dark, their parents grew concerned. From their home in the 700 block of Butler Drive, they set off, looking for their children and alerting the base and authorities to the disappearance. A massive search was soon launched, with over 1,000 Marines joining in with the efforts. Over the next few days, the area of Camp Lejeune was extensively combed through, but no evidence of the children was found. It seemed as if they had disappeared into thin air. Police originally theorized that the pair had fallen into the swamp bordering the base, but no sign of the children was recovered. For decades, the case lay dormant. It wasn't until 1992 that a break came when a woman named Marjorie Hunt contacted Onslow County Sheriff Ed Brown and told him that she knew what had become of the children. Ed Brown had grown up in the area. He was a teenager in high school when Mark and Diane disappeared. He recalled that back then, he had a girlfriend who lived next door to a couple named Henry and Marjorie Hunt. The pair were the subject of much gossip. They lived off base, about 13 miles from the playground where Mark and Diane vanished. Speaking with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, Ed remembered, "My girlfriend's family would always talk about the suspicious things they would see going over on the Hunt's property. At the time, my girlfriend's family had a German Shepherd, and whenever the dog would get out of the yard, he would immediately run over to the Hunt's property and start sniffing around areas of their crawl space." Marjorie Hunt unfortunately died before she could be questioned by law enforcement, but on her deathbed, she had told her daughter what her ex-husband Henry had told her at the time. Henry, who died 1 year earlier at the age of 85, was a convicted child molester and is the only suspect in the case. Marjorie claimed that at the time of the children's disappearance, he had told her he was responsible for the vanishing and their subsequent deaths. Hunt's story goes something like this. On the day of the disappearance, he collected the children from the park and took them fishing on his boat. While out on the water, 2-year-old Mark toppled over and fell in, subsequently drowning. Meanwhile, panicked, Hunt killed Diane and recovered Mark's body. He then navigated to a rock quarry in Maysville, North Carolina, where he disposed of the bodies. Due to his previous experiences with the Hunt family, namely his former girlfriend's dog's obsession with their home's crawl space, and the numerous rumors floating around town about the couple, Sheriff Ed Brown was convinced that instead of leaving the bodies in the quarry, Henry Hunt had brought the corpses home and buried them on his property. It wasn't until some years later, however, in 2011, that any progress was made on this front. A developer eventually purchased the land and was informed of the story by Ed, who asked him to remain vigilant in case he came across any evidence during redevelopment. The developer did as Ed asked. While demolishing the home, the team working on the property discovered a shovel, jawbone, 2 smaller bones, and a child-sized pink vinyl belt underneath the floorboards. While the bones were later found to be animal rather than human, the owner of the pink belt has never been established. All this time later, Brown continues to suspect that Hunt was responsible for the disappearances of Diane and Mark, noting, "You don't leave two children that can talk and walk and run and play with a bad memory in their mind that they could go tell someone about later." Still, despite the suspicions and the deathbed confession, the case remains unsolved, and Mark and Diane have never been located. Diane and Mark were last seen on their way to the playground at Camp Lejeune, a military base in North Carolina, at around 3:15 on the afternoon of September 13th, 1962. Diane was 7 years old at the time, and is described as a white female with blonde hair and blue eyes. She was 3'11" and weighed 79 pounds at the time of her disappearance. She was last seen wearing a white or printed blouse with white sleeves and a pair of shorts. If she is still alive, she will be 68. Her half-brother, Mark, was 2 at the time, and is described as a white male with dark brown hair and weighed 30 pounds when he vanished. On the day he disappeared, he was wearing a t-shirt and brown shorts. He will be 63 if he is still alive. If you have any information about the disappearance of the siblings, you can contact the Onslow County Sheriff's Office at 1-910-455-3113, or alternatively, you can call the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-843-5678. Sarah Avon. 6-year-old Sarah Elizabeth Avon was last seen with her younger sister on the corner of Richard Street in Joliet, Illinois on July 21, 1981. The two girls met with friends there, but after Sarah argued with another child, she walked away from the group and crossed over to the other side of the street. Not long afterwards, she vanished from view and has never been seen again. At 9 o'clock that evening, her family reported her missing. Her parents later noted that they'd last seen her around 8:20 p.m. Old newspaper reports from the time note that the search for Sarah lasted into the following day, involving volunteers, neighbors, and police officers, while volunteer firefighters manned 5 boats and dragged a quarry near Richard Street and Interstate 80. Sarah's mother recalled that her daughter knows a lot of people in this area that I don't, adding that she regularly went to church, took swimming lessons, played football, and even practiced ballet. She stated, "I've been racking my brain trying to remember who she might trust. She is very perceptive of people." But despite the efforts of police, locals, and Sarah's family, no trace of the 6-year-old was ever found. For over a decade, the case lay dormant. Then, in January 1993, a former neighbor of the Avon family, Ernest Wilson Sr., died in Arkansas. Shortly afterwards, his nephew, Robert Tadej, approached the police with information. He claimed that his uncle had made a deathbed revelation about Sarah's disappearance. Though Wilson had been unable to speak, he drew a triangular shape on a piece of paper before adding a circle inside it. Wilson's family members took this triangle to represent the similarly shaped lot he had lived on back in 1981, and theorized that the circle was the spot where Sarah's body was buried. Robert went on to explain that his cousin, Wilson's son, had implicated himself and another boy in Sarah's death. In 1981, the cousin was 15 years old and described as mentally disturbed. He admitted that he had molested the 6-year-old and she was killed inside their home. Robert told the Tribune in May 1993 he said he molested Sarah but was upstairs when she was murdered. There was no doubt in my mind at that time that he had done it because everything fit. The only question was, where was the body? Robert suspected that his uncle had covered up the incident by burying Sarah's body on their property. A further witness corroborated this idea by stating that in 1981 they had seen Wilson digging a hole in his garden. The hole was deep up to Wilson's chest, and when asked why he was digging, Wilson claimed that he was going to move some of his flowers around. Notably, this same witness saw something else odd sometime later when Wilson, using his bulldozer, began moving mounds of dirt near Hickory Creek and knocking down trees. He later moved his family's pool down there. After all this information was revealed to the police, they began digging up the empty lot on Miller Avenue that had belonged to Wilson in 1981. After a few days of extensive searches, however, they recovered no evidence and the event was called off. The witness who had seen Wilson digging a hole in his garden at the time of the disappearance told investigators that he believed they weren't digging deep enough, although they reportedly paid no mind to his complaints. One official did, however, later agree that law enforcement had not searched a big enough area of the property, meaning the possibility that Sarah's remains are still there cannot be ruled out. One other person of interest in the case is an individual named William Billy Redden. 10 years before the disappearance, he was convicted of aggravated battery against a 19-month-old child and served over 3 years behind bars before being released in 1975. In 1981, he was residing in the 200 block of Reichman Street with his mother, just minutes away from Sarah's home. Furthermore, he was her father's cousin. He knew Sarah and regularly visited her house. Redden died in 2010, and while his former home was searched and excavated in 2019, 9 years after his death, no evidence of Sarah was recovered. Still, rumors of Redden's involvement persist even today. Sarah's old babysitter recalled, "Billy Redden was creepy, really scary. Everyone was kind of thinking it was Billy." She also remembered that one of her own children would later become terrified of delivering newspapers or collecting payments from Redden. Another local woman described him as a creep, noting that when she did her paper round as a child, he would say inappropriate things to me, and I was scared to death of him. Redden was questioned at the time of Sarah's disappearance, and a cursory search of his home was carried out, but nothing connecting him to the case was found. Though no evidence ever linked Redden to Sarah's disappearance, locals remain convinced he is the culprit, with Sarah's former babysitter stating, "We're pretty certain it was Billy. The kids were all uncomfortable with him. Anybody that knew them pretty much thought it was Billy." Still, the case remains unsolved. Sarah Elizabeth Avon was just 6 when she vanished from Richard Street in Joliet, Illinois, on July 21, 1981. She is described as a white female with blonde hair and brown eyes, and at the time of her disappearance, she was 4 feet tall and weighed 75 pounds. When she was last seen, she was wearing a Joliet District football t-shirt, blue joggers with red and white stripes, and blue trainers with a white stripe. If she is still alive, she will be 48 years old. If you have any information about Sarah's case, you can contact Will County Sheriff's Office at 1-815-727-8574. Gina Brooks. 13-year-old Gina Dawn Brooks was last seen on August 5, 1989, in Fredericktown, Missouri. That evening, at around 10 o'clock, after watching her brother play in a baseball game, she headed back home along Marshall Street. Upon arriving, she said goodnight to her mother, who was going to bed. Gina then decided she wanted to go out for a cycle and told her brother as much. She left the family home again at around 10:30 p.m. and rode through the town. Witnesses would later report that she was spotted near First Street Baptist Church, where the driver of an old, beat-up station wagon, described as being either light gray, green, or blue in color, and bearing Missouri license plates, attempted to speak with her. Gina, however, kept on riding her bike. She turned the corner onto High Street, where she stopped to speak with her boyfriend. Before long, though, the vehicle appeared again. Shortly afterwards, there was a scream, overheard by several witnesses, including her boyfriend, and the car hastily drove off. Gina was gone, taken off the street by an unidentified perpetrator. All that was left was her bike, abandoned on the pavement. She was just 5 blocks from home. Her parents reported her missing at around 2 a.m. when her mother awoke and found Gina missing from her bed. Before long, Lieutenant Keith Despain, who'd found a bicycle not far from First Street Baptist Church, put the pieces together. The bike belonged to the now missing 13-year-old. By the time the morning came, law enforcement was combing through the town. City, country, state, and federal officials worked together to try and find any evidence of the young girl. Flyers were distributed, posters were blue-tacked up in shops, and yellow ribbons were draped across trees. Locals were shocked by the incident, and volunteers helped search for clues, though they failed to find anything of use. Years passed before investigators discovered the name Nathan Danny Williams. Williams had been an informant on a case in 1975, where he claimed to know who had murdered Laura Dinwiddie, who had been brutally stabbed in her apartment. He had been 14 at the time and pointed the finger at one of his friends. However, by 1989, Williams had racked up quite the criminal history, having been convicted for the rape of a 13-year-old girl and later the rape of a 10-year-old. Investigators who looked further into Williams were able to tie him to evidence from the Laura Dinwiddie case, as well as several other unsolved crimes. Tracing Williams' movements, detectives found that the assault of the 10-year-old girl had occurred just 1 month after the disappearance of Gina Brooks. More interestingly, they discovered that Williams' brother had a close friend who lived near Gina and Williams and was known to frequent the area. He was eventually identified by a witness as the man in the back of the station wagon with Gina on the night she went missing. Witnesses would also go on to identify Bryant Squires as the driver of the vehicle. He reportedly made a deathbed confession to 2 nurses, implicating himself and Williams in Gina's abduction and murder, along with several other crimes. Squires was Williams's best friend and died of cancer in 1996. According to his confession, Williams held Gina in the back seat and took her life. A third person was also reportedly involved with Gina's disappearance, a man named Timothy Bellew, who would later be charged with second-degree murder after admitting he'd seen Williams kill the 13-year-old. However, Bellew's stories were prone to change, and his shifting details led to inconsistent stories. As a result, the murder charges were dropped, and he was charged instead with lying to the FBI when he failed to turn up Gina's remains, repeatedly giving them locations and directions, none of which panned out. At one point, he claimed the body was in an abandoned meat freezer on his father's 96-acre property, but despite numerous searches over the years, no remains have ever been recovered. Bellew pled guilty to this charge and was given 30 months in prison. In 1990, he was convicted of sexually assaulting a 7-year-old girl and given 5 years behind bars. As of 2022, he was still residing in Fredericktown, but authorities have labeled him as unstable and not reliable. In 1998, 9 years after Gina went missing, Williams was charged with her murder. Hope for closure and justice was short-lived, though. In 2003, the charge was dropped for fear of the possibility of double jeopardy. The prosecuting attorney at the time, Dwight Robbins, stated, "I am of the firm opinion that the state should not proceed to trial and risk the possibility of acquittal, thereby losing any chance of retrying the case, should further evidence become available. The offense alleged is so egregious, and the consequences of conviction so great, that the prosecution should proceed only when the evidence is sufficient to ensure the likelihood of conviction." Authorities believe Williams won't confess, as a first-degree murder charge could mean he'd face the death penalty. They believe he is the man who killed Gina after abducting her in 1989, but there is speculation that he won't admit to his part in the crime without some kind of plea deal. Investigators have also named Williams as a suspect in the disappearance of 12-year-old Tammy Rose Surdam, who was last seen at a youth shelter in St. Charles, Missouri, on August 1st, 1979. They suspect he is connected to further crimes. He remains in prison and will not be eligible for parole until 2039. The case is still unsolved. Gina Dawn Brooks was last seen on August 5th, 1989, in Fredericktown, Missouri, when she was approached by a beat-up-looking station wagon with Missouri license plates. The vehicle was possibly light gray, green, or blue in color. Gina was 13 at the time of her disappearance and is described as a white female with blonde hair and green eyes. She has several white scars on the shin of her left leg. At the time of her disappearance, she was 5 foot tall and weighed 108 pounds. She was wearing a blue striped top, white shorts, and trainers. If she is still alive, she will be 48 years old. If you have any information about Gina's case, you can contact the Madison County Sheriff's Office at 573-783-2234 or call Crime Stoppers anonymously at 866-371-8477. And there you have the facts. Please leave a comment down below with your own thoughts and speculations, and remember to like this video and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.